Everyone. I am Rejoice on Umatta Consultant Podcast. Welcome. And if today is your first day on our podcast today, please make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels, especially Spotify. Today we have the special privilege of speaking with Scott, and Scott is the founder and executive coach at Lead to Goals. I would love for him to introduce himself as he sees fit, and we'll dive right into the questions. So, Scott, the mic is yours, please.
All right. I'm not sure where to go with this. I do executive coaching, and I also work with teams within organizations, typically between $5 and $30 million. And we do that because that's where we find that entrepreneurs start struggling learning how to manage their organization. They start getting to a spot where they are beyond their launching portion. They start hiring smart people, and these smart people aren't meeting their expectations for some reason. So they come in, they ask me to come in and work with their teams, and there's work to do, certainly. But what we found more often than not is that it is the entrepreneur himself or herself that is stopping the growth of these teams. And that's where the executive coaching comes back in. I have to work with a lot of people like me. I was an entrepreneur that thought I was good at everything, and come to find out there were some things I needed to learn, right, about leading people as opposed to how I grew up, which was managing people. So that's the work I do. My background is I've had 3 successful exits from entrepreneurial bootstrap companies. I've never had investors. And when I got into my 50s, I went back to school. First, I got a master's in leadership development, and then I went on to get a doctorate in leadership studies. So I love learning, and that's why I went back to the classroom. I now teach leadership at the university as well. So I get to hang out with young people, which is really cool because my mission was to help, old white guys like me learn to lead a little differently than what we grew up with. The things that we learned how to do aren't going to be effective in the future. And it needs to be a much more human-centric leadership position versus here's your task, get it done. I'm giving you a paycheck. Boom, we're even, right? It doesn't work like that anymore. So I get a chance to work with these young people and see that, let's go with this. A lot of people in my generation and even the generation below me look at young people and complain about whatever they complain about, right? What happened to us too? Like our grandfathers complained about us, right? It's the way it works. Stuff rolls downhill, they say. But here's my message to us, to the older people that are still running companies, right? Is that all these complaints that you have about these young people, while there may be some truth in it, it's up to us to help coach and guide them to do the things that they need to learn how to do. And that's mostly communication, right? They learned growing up communicating with their thumbs versus looking you in the eye, shaking hands, having a conversation. It's up to us to mentor them and teach them how to do that. And the benefit of that is huge. Think about this. More than 51% of our workforce today are millennials and the Gen Z. More than 51%. I'm going to extrapolate that and say that if that's true, then I'm going to suggest that more than 51% of our customer base happens to be in those same generations. Why do we need them to work for us? Because do you really want me, a 65-year-old man, making decisions for 19-year-old people? Or would you rather get some of the information from the 19-year-old people who work for you so that we can build a lasting organization, a lasting community?
Makes sense.
So what I'm here to say is that it is incumbent upon us, the older, wiser, however you want to frame yourself, to mentor these young people, to understand the things that you need them to understand for your business and your organization so that you can get the most out of them as well. Empower them to think, use their brains, tell you what people like them, younger people, are thinking so that you can help craft your business the way that you want to for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott, for that wonderful introduction. And something that resonated with me as you were speaking is your passion for learning.
Yeah.
Love learning.
Yeah.
I think that is amazing to hear, and I'm excited to learn more about you and your journey. Let's start with your book. I thought I was a leader. It's a
Yeah.
very honest title, I must say. What
Yeah.
inspired you to write it, and how does it relate to your journey in leadership?
Well, it was inspired by my journey actually, and my journey going from what I would consider a command and control leader, smartest guy in the room. You know those people, right? Everything they say is right, and just do it my way, do it the right way. All of that. I was that guy. I was. I grew up that way. I grew up in sports, and my best coaches were those guys that would just tell me what they wanted done. I would work my tail off and get it done. That's how I was taught. And that's how I brought it into my businesses as well. What I found was that, especially the younger people that I say we need, weren't going to put up with my crap. They're not going to live with that. And turnover started happening. People that I thought I was grooming the way that I was groomed, right, would all of a sudden say, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And they leave. I thought I was doing a great job with them. I thought I was teaching them all these things and stuff. So the reason the book was called "I Thought I Was a Leader" because there's a line and excuse me for the language here, but there's a line in the first chapter that says, "I thought I was a leader. It turns out I was just an asshole." And when I realized that my definition of success might need to change a little bit, right? I grew up without a lot of money. And then I started acquiring stuff because of my success. I got these trophies from the sports, and I got houses and cars and boats and all these cool, nice watches, all these cool things that I thought looked like success. Come to find out that success was very lonely. Every time I would show the people that I grew up with, hey, look, I got something here I can share with you. Like they saw me as bragging, right? And pushed people away. That level of success did not bring me the relationships that I want. And it wasn't just personal life, but it's also business life as well. And business is relationships. And if you want to build relationships, my mom taught me something that was really cool. She said to me one day, she goes, you know, you're supposed to love people and use things, not the other way around. Oh, hit me hard, right? And I extrapolate that to saying that people are more important than things.
Makes sense.
So that's where the journey led me to get back into education. It got me into groups like Entrepreneur Organization, where we got to learn how to treat people, like treat people the way they need to be treated. And you will get more from them when you do that. Everyone's heard of the golden rule, which is, hey, treat people the way you want to be treated. But there's a higher level of that that's called the platinum rule, and that is to treat people the way they want to be treated. And if you do that, the benefits are enormous, enormous. You will get more out of the people than you would ever get by offering them incentives and rewards and punish them when they're not doing well. Like the way that I grew up, you had the carrot and the stick concept, right? Well, it's effective short term, but I don't want to be effective short term. I don't want turnover. I want those 19-year-olds to stay with me. And they're not. They're staying in jobs a year
Right.
and a half, 2 years. No, I'm going to invest in them up front so that they stay with me longer. Now, if I taught them well enough and they benefited my company in the process, right? And they go on to become competitors, high five. Good for you. Good for you. Because they need to do what they need to do as well. They don't owe me anything. And walking into that is certainly not the way I walked into the business world when I owed my boss everything. And the first corporate job that I quit, I became an outcast and a pariah to that organization because they put so much into me and I quit.
Right.
Well, for the 7 years I was there, I got them a lot of good stuff too, right?
They feel like it's a betrayal, right? Of
And that's how it used to feel. And what I learned is that it's not a betrayal. People need to take care of themselves. And the benefits that I get because of that training, because of that mentoring, because of that coaching, because of all that time that I put into them, I'm reaping the rewards along the way and helping somebody in the process.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense. I like the self reflection. I can hear it as you're illustrating your story and some of the things you have seen. What was the biggest personal revolution you had while writing the book? I thought I was a leader. And how did it
Well,
change?
it was actually the inspiration to write the book, the revelation that I got, and that is that the people are more important than things, and that I wasn't leading the life that I wanted to. I actually had a dream, um, and in that dream, it was a dream in the middle of the night, right? And I didn't know where it came from. It just happened, but it was so vivid I could see it. There was an old man sitting in a rocking chair on a porch. Next to him was a little 5-year-old girl holding his hand. I couldn't tell who these people were either in the dream. They were just people. Over to the left-hand side of the porch, there was a group of 4 women sitting around a coffee table just chatting about whatever they were chatting about. And over to the right, there were 3 younger men, like probably one of them was probably the father of one of these kids, this kid that was sitting there, and they were just having a great conversation. This porch was just happy. It was just joyful, right? And when I woke up, I thought, wow, what a cool image. And what I saw was that the people were there not because the old man was handing out credit cards to the women or advice to the men or candy to the little girl. It wasn't for the things that he was giving them, but they were there because of the presence and how they felt about being there in that man's presence. I woke up and I didn't understand it, right? Because that's not who I was. People hung out with me because I can help them win a tennis match or because I could give them some money or because I can give them a job or I can give them great advice. That's why they would come around me, but they weren't hanging out with me for my presence. So that's what started me on my journey was that dream. And I saw that dream over and over and over again. And I realized eventually that that old man was me sometime in the future,
Wow.
the place that I want to be, that I was so far from. So that's what started me on my journey was that like dream. It was just a dream, and then it became a daydream, and then it became this image. And honestly, it was so clear. Other than the faces, I couldn't tell. But eventually, I recognized the people in the scene, and the old man was me sometime in the future. Yeah, it was really powerful. It told me that I'm not doing what I need to be doing. It told me that my idea of success of having the cool house that porch was on wasn't the thing. It was the people that were in that dream,
Very
and the
powerful.
purpose for them being there was is now my definition of success.
Very powerful. Very powerful reflection.
Thank you.
It sounds like your subconscious mind was not letting you go to sleep until you come to that realization.
It's kind of like sometimes I need to be hit on the side of the head with a 2x4. And that dream was a 2x4 hitting me on the side of the head.
Exactly, exactly. I'm glad you had an opportunity to see that in your dream because some people will exit this world without not having an opportunity to change their style or the people they have impacted and so forth. In your book, you emphasize humility, empathy, and vulnerability as core traits. How do you, I guess, how do these qualities impact conflict resolution and psychological safety, especially in a fast moving world and also an AI driven world we live in now?
Sure. So the first thing we need to do is recognize what my definition of these terms are. And they're different than the dictionary definition. So take humility, for instance. Humility, if you look in the definition, says thinking about others more than think about themselves, or it is not thinking you're so great, all that kind of stuff. Mine is slightly different than that. My definition is this: is that every human being has value,
Hmm.
and I can learn something from anybody. And I'm talking about even that homeless guy on the street. There's value in that the human dignity.
Hmm.
That's my definition of now. What can I learn from that homeless guy on the street? I don't know how to survive on the street. I
Right.
could learn from him how to do that kind of stuff, right? So that everyone has something that they could teach me if I'm willing to learn. So that's my definition of humility, is being willing to learn. Empathy is not feeling sorry for people. It is trying to understand them from their point of view, not through my filters. That's how I define empathy. And then vulnerability. What I found was, and I didn't grow up like this. I didn't grow up with any of those words. I wasn't humble. I wasn't empathetic, and I certainly wasn't vulnerable. Like in my in my family of origin, if you were vulnerable, people would step on your neck so that they could be 6 inches taller. Ah, That's what vulnerable meant to me, is don't be vulnerable because it's dangerous. What I
Dangerous.
found was, though, that being vulnerable is the most attractive quality I can have. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's going to make me better looking. I'm done with all that. But but what it'll do is it'll attract people by me being vulnerable. And let me give you a quick example. If I just said to you, I could use a little help, what do?
I
You
want to know
lean
what
in.
it is.
You
Yeah.
lean in, right?
Yes. Yes.
Attracting. I could use a little help. Now, there's going to be some people that are going to say, I don't have time for that, or fine. And there's going to be 4% of the population fall into a category called antisocial personality disorder. Psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists, right? That's the definition of antisocial personality disorder. This doesn't work with them. They don't care. You know what? That gives me 96% of the population that it can work with. So I'm leading with those qualities, which we call principled leadership. Now, there's all kinds of leadership theories out there, and we've developed ours. It's called principled leadership, and it emphasizes humility, empathy, and vulnerability as a way, in particular, to build trust with folks. You cannot have a positive human relationship unless trust is present. So I first need to build trust. And how do I do that? I show you respect, the kind of respect that you deserve for being a human being on this planet. And we all deserve that. Not the respect that's, oh, you're awesome at podcasts, so I respect you for that. Right? That's a different level of respect, and
Right.
great, that's wonderful too. But just the humanity piece. Start there. If I do that, you might engage with me. Now, if I go into the empathy portion, that is me asking questions about you, much as you're doing to me right now, right? Me asking questions about you and showing genuine interest and care in your answers. That doesn't mean I have to agree with all the answers, but showing general interest and care will start letting you relax a little bit and say, wow, this is someone I want to spend more time with. And you go into the vulnerability. And vulnerability in this case is sharing from my experience as opposed to telling you what to do. I have no idea what you should do. I don't have your background. I don't have your experience, and I don't have your consequences.
That's true.
So it is pretty arrogant of me for me to tell you, young woman of color, old white guy, right? Me telling you what you should do, right? That's pretty arrogant, right? We have completely different experiences and consequences. So what I can do is I can share, well, this happened to me one time. Here's where the outcomes were. No, here's what I did. Here's what the outcomes were. And more important, and this is where it really gets to, and here's how it felt.
Hmm.
We don't use that word enough in the business world. In fact, it's been a bad word in the business world,
Yes.
feelings.
Yes.
Oh, keep your feelings off the floor. We all have them. They're real. Like they're real. Like ignore your feelings. Don't worry about your feelings. How does that
Don't
make
bring
you
it
feel?
to work. Don't bring it to
Yeah,
work.
just the opposite of that. I go into meetings. I just got off this sales meeting with another company's. I didn't invite any of their management. I just had the salesman, and I said, I want to hear how you felt about this. You should have seen those guys light up.
Wow.
That someone cared about how they felt, not just what they were going to accomplish. There's two different things.
Very true.
I want people to feel good. I want people to feel valued. I want people to feel that I care.
Very true.
Those people will run through walls for me if I do that. So it's really kind of a selfish thing, right? I'm getting more because I care about them. Cool. And it builds those relationships that lead to the success that I was talking about. But guess what? It leads to financial success as well.
Very
Because I know
true.
this for a fact. When you feel cared for, you are going to work harder for me
Hmm.
and produce more and make me more money and all those other things of success. So it's not this or that. It's yes and it's both. Both things happen at the same time.
Awesome. Scott, let me ask you a follow-up question on the your definition on empathy. So I've been around people who feel if they're super empathetic or they show genuine empathetic abilities, they're sort of looked down on, or they're taken advantage of. So sometimes some of those people feel like they have to put a lens because they're too empathetic. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So you don't know me very well, but I've got a pretty strong presence, right? But I'm very empathetic. People don't take advantage of me.
Hmm.
I have boundaries. There are boundaries that we put on these things. What empathy means for me is not to feel your pain because all that can do is give it a downward spiral, but to
Okay.
try the best I can to understand where you're coming from. I'm
Mm,
not going to fully understand ever because I'm not you. I don't have your experiences. I don't have all those things that have happened to you. But the more I care about trying to understand where you're coming from is going to draw you into a spot that I get the chance to build that relationship. I can build the trust first so that I can build a relationship so that you and I can go do stuff together, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whether it's whatever. If we don't have a strong relationship, which has to be based on trust, we aren't going to get to that spot where we can be as effective as we can be together.
very true.
So I don't want, and there's actually three layers of empathy when you go into the literature. The third level is feeling someone's pain. I don't want that for you. But I want you to understand, or I want to understand you where you're coming from based on your experience and how you see the things. I can help you course correct. I can just understand and feel. Like I just got a compliment from my wife yesterday. She just said she sent me this little meme, and then under it she says thank you because I'm not trying to solve her problems.
Mm,
I'm just trying to listen to her and understand from her point of view what her issues are. That did more for my relationship with her than anything I could have done to solve her problems. People don't want us solving their problems. They want to have a voice and then know that that voice is heard and that they are understood for who they are. Do that with people. That's my definition of empathy. That
very
doesn't mean you get to take advantage of me. All right. I got my boundaries.
very true.
I can't spend 8 hours a day just listening to your sad story. We got work to do too, right? But I don't need to spend 8 hours a day listening to your sad story. I need to spend a couple minutes a day listening to who you are, where you come from, what's important to you, because that can help do two things. One, build our relationship, like I talked about, but it can inform me on the things that I can do to assist you to do a better job, whatever it is that we do for a living, right? So there are there are selfish motives within all this wonderful principled leadership, and that's to make the company better.
That's true.
And when the company's better, I make more money. And when the company's better with principled leadership, I have better relationships with my vendors, with my employees, with my customers, and generally with the public. Right?
That's true.
They get to see me as that old man sitting on the porch, sitting there because people want to be there.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to build. I'm not there yet. It's still a vision. I'm closer than I was, much closer than I was when I started this journey. Um, but there's still more to learn, right? There's still sitting and talking to that homeless guy, sitting and talking to that drug addict, sitting and talking to a customer, sitting and talking to an employee. I'm going to learn something from all of those folks if I'm willing to learn.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Being open and allowing others to share is a learning experience that could widen your understanding and information that anyone can ever take.
But here's the caution. My style of leadership takes more time
Mm,
to show interest in you. Takes more time versus my old style. Just do this. Do it the right way, right? It got things done very efficiently, but
mm,
not nearly as effective.
mm.
Because if I teach, you go back to the old Bible verse, right? Teach a man to give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, you feed him for life.
Right.
So it just makes sense, right? Let him get fed for life. Let him grow. Let him learn. Let him grow. One of the things that it took for me to get to that spot is when I realized that I kept giving people the answers.
Mm,
Hey, Scott, we got a problem. What should we do? I'll just do this. Boom, boom, boom. I was keeping them small,
mm.
and I don't want to do that to people. So they say, but people keep coming to me for advice. So here's how I approach that now. If you came to me for advice and say, hey, Scott, we got a problem. What should we do? The first thing that I would say is, what do you think we ought to do?
Mhm.
I want you to think. And you're at first, when you come to me like that and you're used to me giving your answers, what you're going to say is probably something like this. Well, I don't know. That's why I came to you. And I have an answer for that too. And my answer is, hey, great. When you come up with a couple things, come on back. Let's talk about them. I don't answer people's questions with advice anymore. I wait till they bring something and then we can create some synergy around that idea. Maybe their idea is better than what I was going to say. But as soon as I say it, they're going to anchor on that because I'm the boss.
Right.
I don't want that. I want to see if we can get a better answer. I want to stimulate them so that they feel empowered, so that they can think that they can do more, that they can learn, and they can grow as well. And in that process, I'm probably going to learn something too. It's good for both of us.
Co-create. So, Scott, you write about the difference between managing and leading. In the context of today's AI world, I'm sure you've been hearing everything that people have been talking about in the
Yeah.
workplace.
Yeah.
How do you think the gap has widened or narrowed?
Well, I do think management is necessary. I do think that there's some things that we need to hold people accountable for, right?
Mhm.
But I think the difference between managing and leading is this. Yes, managers hold people accountable. They set the direction, they hold people accountable. A leader has to do two things. We need to hold people accountable, but we also need to provide them the support that they need. So if I can do both of those things, I'm not just saying, hey, hand out a project and whatever comes back comes back. That's this whole let's hold hands and love each other is no. There's some management in the business world, true, but if I just hold them accountable and responsible for the things for the outcomes without providing the tools, and sometimes the tools is an understanding of why. Why is this important to the organization? Sometimes it is a getting into dialogue with them to say, what do you think? All right. Sometimes it's, hey, they need more resources. They need more money. They need more help. They need more whatever. I need, as the leader, to provide the support so that I can hold them accountable and that we do get the outcomes we're looking for. So leadership requires both support and accountability. Whereas management, typically, it's accountability.
Ability. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you foresee in the future?
AI. Let's talk about AI for a minute.
Yeah.
It's going to be dangerous for the workforce that are not prepared for it. There's a lot of people thinking that they're going to graduate from college and get this low level management job and then move up the ranks and all. I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
AI is going to tell them we don't need you anymore. But what we do need is skilled labor. We need electricians, we need plumbers, we need framers, we need people that can build stuff. We need people that can think about the right questions to ask this AI tool. I've seen people use AI and it's just like ridiculous the questions they ask it. They don't give it enough information. They want it to know everything that it's supposed to know from the world, and they get mediocre answers. I use AI tools as well, but my prompts are deep. I'll go
Mm,
deep into the prompts. So what I'm suggesting for people is to learn how to use AI and not just let AI do it for you. We still need that human thought. We still need the direction from whoever's inputting to give it to get the output that you're looking for. You have to have better inputs. I always say this, and this is true no matter what. To get better answers, you ask better questions.
very true.
And that's true with AI as well.
Very true. Very true. And I feel like we're feeling it even on LinkedIn right now. I've been monitoring. I've seen so many people are looking for work, and I'm thinking there's a lot of replacements happening, or maybe shifts of work and responsibilities. So the strategy needs to be looked at in different organizations as
Sure.
these
So,
needs.
and AI can help you with the strategy as well if you ask it the right questions. If you give it enough information about who's your target customer, who's your what's your product, what products can be coming next. AI can be a great tool for brainstorming, but AI can't do the work for you, right? We're not there yet, where AI is going to be able to implement some of that strategy or make the determination what is the best strategy for me. It might tell you the best strategy for the average amount of people out there, but I want the best strategy for me and my organization. That's going to require me. It's going to require me, my team. It's going to require some give and take and some bouncing of ideas around outside the AI world. And so we need to get people prepared to enter into dialogue, more dialogue. And this is what I'm concerned about with the remote workforce, right? We don't get together enough. We don't talk enough. Zoom fatigue happened. So people didn't even want to get on a Zoom call anymore. But
Yeah,
that's where the magic happens is when people are in dialogue and not in emails, not in Slack, not in
right.
text, right? Face to face or on a video chat where I can see your reaction to what I'm saying, which will help guide me to the next thing that I need to say.
It's true. Very true.
Where I can get your immediate feedback and know you're saying it with a smile instead of in print, it looks like a critique, as opposed to in a conversation, say, hey, that's a great idea. But if you sent that same thing on an email, I'd say, who does she think she is? Right? Anyway, we need to get better at this interpersonal communication stuff.
I agree.
And
I
again,
agree.
going back to the young people, we need to teach them the importance and the value of it. Not just that, but then how to go about it. One of the things that I get to do in my classroom is get these young people to like look each other in the eye and talk. You should see the responses at first part of the semester. It is so awkward, right? Because they're not used to doing that.
I,
But by the end of the semester, they say, "I have never had an." I put them in group experiences, like where they have to make a group presentation. I've never had a group where everyone was engaged before.
hmm,
And I hear that constantly because of the process that we put people through so that they can learn how. We don't just force them into it, do this or else. We show them the value, the why behind it, right? Then we show them the techniques on how to go about doing this. And then we show them the success that they end up having. And some of these folks that have never met each other, they get into a small group of five and the end of the semester, I got some new best friends. It's so cool, and they put
everyone
together some
pulls through.
amazing projects because of it.
Hmm.
There were no slackers. There were no like everybody in the group participated. Anyway, it can happen, but it can't happen with our thumbs. It just can't. We can't just communicate with our thumbs.
Exactly. I agree. Is there a moment or story in the book where you experienced a turning point in how your approach conflict or trust within your team?
There's several. My whole journey has been about trust. How to build trust both faster and deeper. And there's a process that we call the circle of trust that, and again, it uses those humility, empathy, and vulnerability into a cycle. And it starts with respect for human dignity, listen to understand. A Stephen Covey thing from his seven, uh, ah, the 7 habits of highly effective people comes from that. It's called listen to understand, instead of listening to reply. Most of us listen to reply. You say something, I want to say something back, right? So the listen, understand. Then we go from share from experience, as opposed to me telling you what to do, what you should do. I take the word should out of my vocabulary because I don't know what you should do. And then the fourth part of that is how people typically build trust is dependability. And you have to do what you say you're going to do. That's how you always build trust with people. Do what you say you're going to do it again, do it again, do it again. And eventually people start trusting. Well, it's in our process, but it's the last piece of the process. So if I start with respect, listen to understand, share from experience, and then do what I say I'm going to do, which we call deliver on the promise. So that was a cycle that a theory. And what we found was, and I tested this theory, is what my doctoral dissertation was on. We tested that theory, and what it suggested is you go through that process 3 times with someone, you now have enough trust that you can build a relationship.
Hmm.
And it's faster and deeper than the way to build trust. So that's probably the biggest revelation, is that you can't have a positive human relationship without trust. Trust takes a long time to build. Well, can we shorten that process? And the answer is yes. Yes, we can.
Exactly. Especially when you're taking feedback from everyone on your team. They may see something that you probably have not thought about.
Well, sure, there's new information there, but
Hmm.
more important than that new information is that you show them that they matter. That's a big deal.
Hmm.
Having enough care to show you that you matter.
That's true. You matter. And we're in the You Matter Consulting podcast
There
today.
you go. How did that get worked in?
You did a pitch for us. So, if a leader is struggling with team engagement, and they pick up your book today, what is one chapter or principle you want them to start with?
I think it's I think it's empathy. I think it's empathy. Understanding people from where they're coming from. Um, Start there. Like just I was going to say humility because show people the dignity. Super important. It really is super important. Show you dignity, but then the empathy show you that you matter. That's just that's like glue to a relationship, right? If I show you that you matter, you're going to want to spend more time with me.
Very true.
So I would say empathy would be the first thing that I would go. I mean, it's all about building trust so they can build a relationship. That's what this whole book is really about, and the value of that. And there's communication skills. There's all kinds of things built in this, but I think empathy is matters. It matters.
Very true. Very true. I spoke with someone, an employee, that shared with me that sometimes, at home they don't feel valued. So if a manager or leader see value in them,
Yeah,
imagine how much that person want to give to their work just to come to work every single day, because this is where they get their value from.
yeah, yeah. I talk about the workforce and how I want my organization to be. Is that I don't want you working 20 hours a day, and I don't want you working 7 days a week. I want you to enjoy your life. Actually, I want you looking forward to Friday afternoon so that you can say the weekend's coming.
Yes.
But I also want people that get excited about Sunday night.
Yes.
When they get to wake up in the morning, they get to go see their people. These are my people. This is my tribe. I get to go do this thing, right?
Yes.
What a great workplace that is, right? When they're excited about being there because they feel like they matter and the work that they're doing matters. Individually, for a person that they matter, and the work that they do matters. And then they get to make money off this thing so that
Yes.
they can go enjoy their weekend and their nights and their dinners and all the things. Like, it's so cool.
Very cool. Very cool. The work you're doing is phenomenal. I saw a statistic out there, maybe you saw it too as well, that about 82 or 84% of Americans are not happy on Sundays.
Yeah,
So
not a
it's
good stat.
it's not at all. And that's why your work that you're doing matters. Um, Executive coaching to
Yeah, well, And it's difficult work because listen, the people, and I'm going to say guys because it's mostly men, right, that are stubborn, and they're stubborn for a reason. What they have done all their lives has worked for them
Mm,
based on what their definition of success was, which is buying more cars and bigger houses and boats and money. When it gets down to money, right? Their 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 process worked for them.
mm,
What I'm asking them to do is redefine what success really looks like. Trust me, I still like nice things. I still like having cool stuff. I can get that cool stuff because of the people that want to be with me that can help me. So
very true.
so
Very,
anyway, that's I love my work. I'm going to work forever. I will never retire
mhm.
because I think this matters. I think it's important, and I want honestly I want young people to have an opportunity, but I want the men of my generation to recognize there's a better way than what we were taught.
Right. Do you think, and this is just a follow up question from what you said earlier, do you think most people have the tools to solve problems when they run into conflict resolution specifically?
Um, sure, they believe they do, and the tool that gets used more often than not is power. It's not the right tool. It works. If I have more power than you, I can resolve this conflict
Hmm.
short term. What I'm going to do, though, is exasperate it long term if I use that tool, the power tool. So
Very true.
I can solve any conflict I want just by making the decision we're going to go this way or else you're fired, right? So you're going to go that way. But then you're going to start looking for another job. So the tools that they need, they have, and I tell people this all the time. I'm not going to teach you anything you don't already know. In
Hmm.
fact, things that you knew when you were in kindergarten, which is how to play in the sandbox.
Very true.
What I'm going to do is help peel away the crap that we've learned, those tough ass coaches that we had, that first boss that was, like I was, all of that. We need to peel that back so that we can start leading with humility, empathy, and vulnerability and dependability. There still need to be that. Um, and if we can do that, we can create that environment of the sandbox that we get to play with people. Work can be play. Work can be fun. I love work.
Very true. Very true. Awesome. Scott, how does I Thought I Was a Leader equipped leaders to navigate challenges of maintaining psychological safety in the increasing automated and remote workplace or teams that we're experiencing now? Any advice or suggestion?
Sure, we can talk about psychological safety, and I believe this. I think psychological safety needs to be a top-down driven initiative. The boss needs to believe in it. However, and create the atmosphere for psychological safety, making people feel safe to show up, safe to speak up, safe to challenge my assumptions. But anybody in the room can ruin it. Say we're in a conference room and you're at the other end of the table and I'm the boss and you're challenging me. You say, but Scott, wait a minute. And then Joe over here rolls his eyes, right? Here she goes again. I'm insisting on psychological safety and Joe just messed it up. Because
Yeah,
are you really going to put yourself out there when Joe's rolling his eyes?
no,
You're going to say, you know what? I'm done. I'm out of
right.
here. So what we need to do is a top-down driven initiative, but it also needs to be reinforced the value of at the mid-level, the lower levels, we need to let people learn how to speak truth to power, being respectful in speaking that truth, but being able to speak truth to power, allowing for it to happen and saying, interesting, tell me more, as opposed to, that's a stupid idea. I can say something like, I hadn't thought of it like that. In fact, I'm not sure I agree. Can you tell me more about that? Right? As opposed to, that's a stupid idea. We're not going there. Which one would you rather engage with? The one that says, tell me more.
Tell me
Right?
more. Hmm.
And if I ask you to tell me where you're going to, but if I shut you down, you're done. You're done in that conversation, and you're probably not going to bring up the next conversation because who needs to feel like that? So that's what psychological safety is about: is allowing people to show up, allowing people to speak up, and asking dumb questions. Like dumb questions, right? There's no dumb questions. You're only asking the question because you don't know. And doesn't it benefit me if you know? Like, that's not a dumb question. Let's make sure I didn't. We didn't do enough training. We didn't do enough explaining. We didn't give you the why. We like ask the question. So you got to feel safe showing up, asking the question, bringing in new ideas, even if they're far wacky ideas. We'll never go anywhere if we're not without new ideas. And then challenging my assumptions. You need to be able to those 4 levels. The guy named Tim Clark wrote a book called The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety that I really like, and it talks about those: the ability to feel welcome, inclusion, the one to be able to ask questions, the one to start inquiry, the one to be able to bring new ideas, and the one to be able to challenge existing ideas.
Very true.
Create that, and you're going to have a much better organization.
Amazing. It sounds fantastic, and it sounds, as we all know, some of these principles, they sound very beautiful in the ears and easy to understand, but the implementation part,
Yeah.
implementing it tends to be a little bit tougher than we think.
So what I tell people is that the concepts that I talk about are all simple, but they're not easy. Good for me that they're not easy because that's job security. People are going to hire me to help them get through that. But honestly, that's not easy, and it's not easy because you're dealing with people, and people are, they have different experiences and they have different ways of looking at the world, and we have to treat people individually as well as in a group. There's no such thing as just a group. There's individuals within the group, and that person needs to feel. I keep using that word, feelings. Wow, that person needs to feel too. So
Very true. Thank you so much, Scott, for being here today and telling your story, your inspiration, the book you wrote about. I thought I was a leader. And for me, I got a sense of your core values in that book around humility, empathy, and vulnerability, which I think are all extremely important. Do you
thank
have
you
any
very much.
last minute words to say before we close today?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity. I actually have a new book coming out in November, and it's going to be a different kind of book than I've written in the past. This one's going to be a parable style. I don't know if you've ever read The Precious Present or The Present or Jonathan Livingston Seagull. These are older
Yes.
books. They're kind of parables, right? And this one's going to be called You Win Again, Jack. And it talks about
Wow.
that winner guy, that the one that's always winning. And then till he realizes the definition of winning might not be the one that he's looking for. So it's kind of a fun book. It's fiction, but it's based on real experiences.
Hmm. I'm excited to hear this, and I'm really excited to watch out for your launching of your book. And for all our listeners, please make sure you grab one. It's worthwhile.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And until next time, guys, make sure you subscribe and take care. Bye bye.
Bye.